Guys, remember, we're going over how did the Seventh-day Adventist Church come to be, or what's unique about the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And we know that there's a guy named William Miller, and what is he famous for again? He said Jesus is coming 1844. And right now we're saying, we're going over how did he even come up with this date? Did he randomly just like have a dream? No, he said he read the book of Daniel and Revelation. And if you look at those dates, then we'll be able to get that. So we're slowly building up there. Okay? So Daniel chapter 7, we saw the first beast. It was a lion with the wing. Tracy, if you don't, sorry, but can you close the door? Who's the first beast supposed to represent? Do you guys remember? Remember Daniel gave an interpretation? Okay? So who is the first animal? All the different animals, what are they supposed to? Kingdoms. Very good, okay? So the first animal we think is the kingdom of? Babylon, okay? And then the next one is? Do you remember what kingdom?
Greece?
It was Middle Persia, okay? Okay, so it's Media and Persian. So that's why it's tilted, because it was two, but one of them was stronger. Persians become stronger. And do you know why the three bones? Because they destroyed three nations to build their empire, which was Babylon, Syria, and then also Lydia. Okay, and then the next kingdom. Do you remember what this one represented? Greece. Okay, and then why the four heads and the four wings?
Four chiefs.
Yeah, the four generals after Alexander died. Okay, and after this, we said it's the hideous beast. So we said Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, they tell us the same exact thing. Okay, that's what we see. We see a parallel. Okay, and then we talked about how, sorry, the next picture is it's a little ugly, but so it's like this little big hideous beast, and then what happens? The three horns fell off, and then we said this little horn came, it had a face, and then what did the face do? It changed time, okay, and the laws. It was saying, I am God, and it defamed the gods of the high, most high as well. And those are some of the reasons why we think. And so again, we see that the Catholic Church, what they did, they changed the Ten Commandments. Okay, so we talked about this, yeah? They took out this one. Why did they take out this one? Number 2. Because they built statues, they have statues of Mary and saints all the time, right? So they couldn't take that. So they took that out. And then Sabbath day, they changed the Sabbath, right? So instead they put Lord's Day instead. And because they took 2 out, they decided to separate number 10. So if you look at the Catholic Bible today, this is what you will see. Okay. And they're not like hiding it either. They're okay with it. Because they believe that they're the mouthpiece of God. So they can change it if they want to. Okay? So it's not a big deal for them. Okay, and then we also talked about how the Pope gained, after the Roman Empire collapsed, it turned into 10 different nations or kings. Okay? But the Pope right here of Italy, he took care of these 3 horns. Okay? And then once that happened, he became the supreme ruler of Europe after that. He had a lot more power after that. Okay? And then we saw this idea right here. They will be given over to his hand, time, half a time. And then that was a very complicated calculation. We did that last week about how that time times half a time equals how many days? 1260. Okay, 1,260 days. And then when we're talking about prophecies, though, 1 day equals 1 year. So that means 1,260 years. So that means whoever this little horn is will have power for 1,260 years. So we looked at history and we said, oh, that's exactly what happened. Okay? So again, you see the collapse of Ostrogoths, it's 538. Okay? So that's when the power started, 538. And then in 1798, Napoleon sent his general to take the Pope out of power. So that's exactly what you see. And the exact date is 1,260 years. Okay, again, this is why SDAs, but a lot of other Protestants as well, believe that the little horn represents the Pope and the Catholic Church. Okay, anyways, so that was a review, hopefully a review from what we talked about last week. Any questions? Yeah.
How did they come to the conclusion that a time, and half a time is all equivalent to
60.
1260?
Yeah. So I'm going to do this fast. Okay, so 1 month. 1 month is 30 days, right? So time means 1 year. Times means 2 years. And then half a time is half a year. So 1 plus 2 plus half is 3.5. 3.5 equals 1,260 days. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why. But if you don't believe me, because that's kind of like, well, you're making things up, then you could go to Revelation. Well, okay, I'll show you that real quick since you're asking. That's a very good question. So if you go to Revelation, we actually have the same exact like phrasing. Okay, and then in that same exact phrasing, hold on, let me show you. Where is it? Okay, so if you look over here, it says the woman fled in the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of. 1,260 days. But that means nothing, right? Because that's from Daniel, that's from Revelation. However, it talks about the same thing in verse, so same chapter, same event, but where she will be taken care of 4 times half a time. And so we're like, okay, how does times half a time equals 1,260 days? Oh, it's because if you look at it, the whole okay, 3.5, so it must mean, 3.5 years means 42 months, and 30 days and 42 months, that means 1,260 days. So therefore, 1,260 years. Yeah. Okay.
That's cool. Okay.
Very cool, yeah. Yeah. So definitely not out of nowhere. There's like a reason for all of this. Okay, so now we're going to go to Daniel chapter 8. Okay? All right. So all of these, they're all, what I'm trying to show you is all of these prophecies, they're connected somehow.
What's that Ezekiel one?
Uh-huh.
That Ezekiel verse? How are we sure that it's 1 day, 1 year?
That's a great question.
Because I went over that question multiple times,
Yeah.
and there's like one time in the Old Testament where
Yeah.
they talked about 1 day being 1 year.
Yeah.
But that correlation wasn't like.
Yeah.
That one I didn't agree with. There's another one.
Sure.
There was another one
Sure.
that I do agree with.
So I think that is a great question. I can't tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. But they said that's the principle. The principle is whenever we're talking about prophetic times, it seems like when God uses, and maybe the argument could be it works here. It works here, so therefore that must mean that prophecy, when it talks about 1 year, so Ezekiel is basically talking about God reveals to Ezekiel 1 day equals 1 year when it's talking about prophecies, right? So that's how they apply it here as well, and it works. But again, is that 100%? I don't know, but that's a good question. Yeah. That's a great question. All right, let's go to Daniel 8 now. All right, Abel. Actually, I'll start first. In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar. Oh, so not King Nebuchadnezzar, King Belshazzar. Do you remember what chapter we read? It was also King Belshazzar. It was the last chapter too. Okay, so Daniel chapter 2, King Nebuchadnezzar. Chapter 7 last week, Belshazzar. Okay, so it's towards the end of Babylon. Towards the end. Okay? I, Daniel, had a vision, and after the one that had already appeared to me. In my vision, I saw myself in the citadel of Susa in the province of Elam. In the vision, I was beside the Ulai Canal. So he's at just some random place. Okay, let's keep going.
I looked up, and there before me was a ram with 2 horns, standing beside the canal, and the horns were long. One of the horns was longer than the other, but grew up later. I watched the ram as it charged towards the west and the north, and the south. No animal could stand against it. No one could rescue from its power. It did as it pleased and became great.
Okay, so what kind of animal?
A ram.
Ram. What kind of characteristics?
Two horns.
Two horn. But two horn, what's the special characteristics about the two horns? One's bigger than the other. Oh, does that sound familiar? Huh? Okay, maybe not. Okay. It should, hopefully. If you were here last week, it should. Okay. And then it went towards how many directions? Three. Oh, does it? Oh, one is higher than the other with 3 ribs. Huh? Okay. Okay, so this is a picture. Let's keep going.
As I was thinking about this, suddenly a goat with a prominent horn between its eyes came from the west, crossing the whole earth without touching the ground.
Oh. Okay. So what animal?
Goat.
Goat. So first one is ram. Second one is goat with what? Prominent horn. And it came from the west. And then what? Without touching the ground. So what is it talking about? It's talking about speed. Okay. Does that sound familiar?
It's a unicorn.
Okay, unicorn. Okay, so let's see what happens.
The goat came toward the two-horned ram, and I had seen standing beside the canal and charged at it at great rage. I saw it attack the ram furiously, striking the ram and shattering its 2 horns. The ram was powerless to stand against it. The goat knocked it to the ground and trampled on it, and none could rescue the ram from its power.
Okay, so we have, what was it once again? We have 2 animals. What's the first animal? Ram. And then goat comes and flying and then attacks it and destroys it.
The goat became very great, but at the height of its power, the large horn was broken off. In its place, 4 prominent horns grew up toward the 4 winds of heaven.
Oh, again, 4. Okay, so this horn, great horn, it's prominent, it's great. But at the height of its power, it breaks off. And then 4 horns come out. Does that sound familiar at all? Okay. So something like that. With the creepiest goat-looking thing ever. Okay, let's keep going.
Out of one of them came another horn, which started small but grew in power to the south and to the east and toward the beautiful land. It grew until it reached the host of the heavens, and it threw some of the staring host down to the earth and trampled on them. It set itself up to be as great as the commander of the army of the Lord. It took away the daily sacrifice from the Lord, and his sanctuary was thrown down.
Okay, so again, he had a big horn. That breaks. 4 horns come out. And then out of one of them, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there's 2 parts. The first part is it reaches all the different parts of of the earth, right? So it says it went to the earth, it went to the south, east, towards a beautiful land, okay? And then, but it doesn't stop there, right? And then there's a second part. What does it do? It goes up to heaven as well. So not only does it go this way, it also attacks upwards as well. So something like this. All right. So let's go back. Let's go to discussion questions really quick. With your groups, go for it. So one group here and then our group. Go for it. Yeah, if you have this vision, what kind of...
I need to meet 1 horn. I don't think it, logically speaking, it's not possible. But maybe I'm thinking of what if it's a crystal ball? Maybe the sound of the horn could go out throughout.
It's a dream though. So what's your interpretation? Not if it's logical or not.
I don't know. It's weird.
Dude, I had a weird dream last night.
I had a weird dream.
I had such a bad dream last night.
Yeah, me too. Horrible dream.
Horrible
Never
dream.
dream. It's kind of sad.
Okay, anyways, go.
Yeah, so because I never dream. I don't have much of a creative mind.
I hope so at least.
I don't think about. I never dream, so I never think about dreaming creativity.
I guess, let's say you had this dream, what would your thought be?
Then then I'll be
Like, let's say this is a very vivid dream and you actually remember it too.
If I remember all of it,
Then you're
like, I would have to
ready
open up my
for
creativity. I was like, what the heck
Or
is
this,
happening?
right?
But
Well,
then
the
like,
first-
yeah.
But would it be a positive or a negative for you?
Oh, yeah,
All the
yeah,
base,
that's it.
the
It'd be like a
statues
learning
and the
game,
bases.
just because it'd be a
So
learning
if
game
they
because I never
could,
dreamed.
they wanna
And
link it.
if I had a dream like this, I'd be like, okay, I never thought this was so this God can tell me something.
Yeah. So what do you think God is trying to? What would you think?
The direction
Like
of
this
the
thing
nations.
coming
to
and
be
like,
so
I don't know, something with like, if a thing gives up its, if a bee like it has to use a stinger, then you're kind of giving up, like it's like its last stand. And if a goat has a missing horn, it went through some sort of last stand moment maybe. So like some.
No, but they
something
go
serious.
back though. With these animals, it goes back.
It goes back with these ones? Oh.
No, you didn't know that.
What do you
I
mean?
didn't know that. I didn't know that.
What do you mean it goes
I
back?
knew that.
Yeah, because like deer, they get into these fights and they're fighting for their to get the female. It breaks off.
Yeah, if it breaks off, it grows back.
I think it grows back.
I thought it doesn't grow back.
I don't think so, but
I don't think it does.
Really?
I don't think it
Apply
does.
to like swine
No. I thought it did.
I don't know. I don't know 100%.
what would you think if you had this dream?
Like how they say.
I gotta stop having late dinners, bro. Like, I don't know, this is like weird.
It's a fly.
I don't know what to think of it. I'd be troubled.
What's the line you see between?
Because if you're getting these I mean, just weird.
Again, I think has to.
It's not even like it has any sense.
There was a
has no
goat with the
sense.
two horns, one shorter, one longer.
Any similarities do you see with the statue and the four animals from the sea?
They're being crooked, they're.
They'll have horns though. They break off.
So I applied to other
But in this
people.
case, there's 4 horns. I don't know what the 4 horns mean. And then one reaching all the way like, that
Oh,
far.
I applied to Baylor, but I don't think I got it.
Okay, let's come back together. Okay, so far, all the dreams, what were they about?
Kingdoms.
They're about kingdoms. So if this is a kingdom, what kingdom do you think it could be? If all of our interpretations were correct,
Babylon,
Babylon? Why Babylon?
that's the first one.
Because you always started with first one?
Or also the fact that Media Persia came in and then broke the ram.
Okay.
There's 2 kings. There's Nebuchadnezzar. and-
Okay. What was the characteristics again of this ram?
Initially, it was very strong. 2 horns.
With 2 horns, but what was it? One was more prominent than the other, and then it also went 3 directions. What does that sound like?
Sounds like a bear.
It sounds like Middle Persia, right? Because Middle Persia, same thing with the bear, right? It was tilted on one side, so one was stronger than the other, and then it was chewing what? 3 bones. So if our interpretation of Daniel 7 is correct, then this must also be Middle Persia as well. But we might be wrong, of course. Okay, but let's see. Okay, how about this one? Great horn, speed, and then it breaks off, and then 4 comes out. Where do we see 4?
The 4 heads.
Okay, what was that one?
Greece.
Greece. Oh, Greece.
Alexander.
So maybe this represents, the first horn represents Alexander, and then at its prominent power, remember Alexander, at his prime he died. And then what happened after, and then the 4 generals came out. So maybe, again, if we're right about everything we did, then this perhaps is Greece. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's see if we're correct, because we could be wrong.
No, well, Daniel, was watching the vision and trying to understand it. There before me stood one who looked like a man. And I heard a man's voice from the Uli calling, Gabriel, tell this man the meaning of the vision. As he came near the palace, the place where I was standing, I was terrified and felt prostrated. Yeah. Son of man, he said to me, understand that the vision concerns the time of the evil. While he was speaking to me, I was in a deep sleep with my face to the ground. There he touched me and raised me to my feet.
So basically, he had this vision and he sees angels next to him. So he's like, oh, can you tell me about the dream? And then the angels start speaking and then he basically faints because like the angel's too much for him. Okay, let's keep going. He said, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the time of wrath. Because the vision concerning the appointed time of the end. So again, all of these prophecies, it's about the end times. The two-horned ram that you saw was?
Kings of Media and Persia.
Okay, so I don't need to interpret this stuff for you. It's already here. So the angel very clearly says, this is Middle Persia. Does that make sense? Okay, so we don't need to guess whether, is this Middle Persia or not? Because it's the angel tells it, the Bible tells us. Okay? And so everything we talked about, this like tilt, everything, like it went this way, it went west, it went south, right? Egypt, Lydia, Syria, Babylon. It tells you exactly where they went. Okay. Next.
The shaggy goat is the king of Greece, and the large horn between its eyes is the first king. The four horns that replaced the one that was broken off represents four kingdoms that will emerge from his nation, but will not have the same power.
Okay. Huh? So I don't need to interpret stuff. We don't need to go, we're not looking into it. The Bible actually tells us exactly what it is. And then everything we talked about, right? Again, we see the large horns probably represents King Alexander. Right? It tells you the first king. And after that, four horns that replace the four kingdoms. So do you guys see what's going on here? Okay. So again, the Bible makes it very clear, like these three, like it's pretty darn clear. Like we don't need to guess about these three. All right. Let's see what happens. Minu?
In the latter part of their reign, four kings, when rebels have become completely wicked, a fierce-looking king, a master of intrigue will arise. He will become very strong, but not by his own power. He will cause astounding devastation and will succeed in whatever he does.
Oh, okay. So it's not the four kings. Remember what we saw? We saw this, and then we saw that this represents Alexander, and then there was four horns that came out, so the four generals. But he says another king will arise. That represents this big horn, long horn. Does that make sense? So not out of the four, but another king after. Okay. And he will become very, very strong. Okay, not by his own powers. Okay, let's keep going. Genesis.
He will destroy those who are mighty, the holy people. He will cause the seed to prosper, and he will consider himself superior. When they feel secure, he will destroy many and take his stand against the prince of princes. Yet he will be destroyed, but not by human power.
Okay. So we think, because it doesn't tell us. The Bible doesn't tell us who this next king is. But again, we go back here, and it seems like it's the same exact pattern. Daniel 2, Daniel 7, and Daniel 8, it all seems like the same exact pattern. So we think the next kingdom after Greece, who was it? Rome. So we go, this is talking about Rome. Okay, so perhaps the first part of the longhorn, what did it do? It spread out all across the earth. That's the Roman Empire. But it doesn't stop there. What does it go? What does it do? It goes, it attacks the heavens. And then it, right there, it talks about how it bullies the holy people and things like that. So that, again, we go back to the Catholic Church. So not the Roman Empire politically and the Roman Empire religiously. Okay? So let's put everything together. We think Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 8, they're all talking about the same exact thing. It's showing us the same exact pattern. Once again, it starts with Babylon. Daniel 8, it doesn't mention Babylon, right? We think maybe it's because it's towards the end of Babylon anyways. And then the second, Middle Persia, again, same exact pattern. And then Greece, again, same pattern. And then we think, again, the four horns, and then this, again, Rome, and the last one. This is the long horn. Okay, it attacks. Okay, do you guys kind of get the overall picture of what's going on here? Okay. Any questions? Or what I can tell you for sure, because the Bible actually says it like verbatim, is these three. Because it says it for sure. These two, there's a lot of different churches saying different things. I'm just letting you guys know. But how SDAs, we interpret it, and a lot of people, at least in the 18th century, that's how they interpret it as well, is this. Okie dokie. Okay, let's see some of the similarities between these two horns. Okay. Similarities number one, both come from the fourth kingdom. Okay, again, both. They're all in the same thing, right? These are related. And these are related too. They're not separate kingdoms. They're also together. Okay. Second one, it describes the same symbol, which is a horn. Next one, they both have persecuting powers and they target God's people. So not only are they just taking care, like destroying the earth, but they're also trying to attack God's people as well. They're both self-exalting and blasphemous, which means they go, oh, who needs God? Or I am God, I'm better. This kind of idea. And then both have activities described by prophetic time. Both they said it talks about this end time. Okay? And both are destroyed supernaturally. So it's not something that just people can just take over, but they are going to be destroyed supernaturally. And we're going to see that in Revelation. Okay? Let's keep going. Let's talk a little bit more about this horn. And today we're just going to get a glimpse of the 1844 date. Okay, but not 100%. Just a glimpse. Okay. So let's keep going. Okay, Tracy?
Out of one of them came another horn, which started small but grew in power to the south and to the east and toward the beautiful land. It grew until it reached the host of the heavens, and it threw some of the starry host down to the earth and trampled on them. It lifted itself up to be as great as the commander of the army of the Lord. It took away the daily sacrifice from the Lord, and his sanctuary was thrown down. Because of rebellion, the Lord's people and the daily sacrifice were given over to it. It prospered in everything it did. It was thrown to the ground.
Okay, so again, we're talking about this horn right here. Okay, and the activity of this horn. Not this one, not the first horn, not the four horns, but this long horn right here. Okay, what do we see? Again, it attacks the top, and then what does it do? It took away the daily sacrifices of the Lord. Okay, sanctuary. So it talks about all these like different like temple ceremonial stuff. Okay, let's keep going.
Then I heard a holy one speaking, another holy one said to him, how long would it take for the vision to be fulfilled? The vision concerning the daily sacrifice of rebellion that caused desolation, the surrender of the sanctuary, and the trampling on the foot of the Lord's people. He said to me, it will take 2,300 evenings and mornings, and the sanctuary will be reconsecrated.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to translate this. Okay, it could be reconsecrated, it could be cleansed, or restored. Okay, the first thing, 2,300 days. So again, if we follow Daniel, 1 day equals 1 year. So that means 2,300 days equals 2,300 years. Does that make sense? So everything is built upon this. It's not just random thing, but it's like everything works. So therefore they go, oh, it worked here. So it's the same book. So therefore we should apply it here as well. So that's how. Okay, I'm going to tell you more later, but at least the 2,300 year equals 2,300 years. So therefore, that's how we got 1844 date. Does that make sense? Now, next week, we're going to talk about why did we start 457 AD though? Uh-huh. So, because there must be a reason. Okay, in Daniel chapter 9, it's going to talk about that. But at least you can see this idea of 2,300 years. This idea, concept. Okay, next week, we're going to talk about 490 or 70 week prophecy. And we're also going to talk about the beginning date. But at least I want to show you the big picture at least right now. Okay? Now, I want to tell you guys why they thought Jesus was going to come in 1844. Okay? So let's look at the language here. It says here, it will take 2,300 evenings and mornings, and the sanctuary will be, let's use the word cleansed for now, or restored, same thing. Okay? Now, whenever Jewish people heard this phrase, temple will be cleansed, do you know what they thought of?
Sin would be forgiven.
Okay, sin will be forgiven. So now you have to know the Old Testament very well. So what was the whole idea of the temple?
To offer sacrifice.
Yeah, to offer sacrifice. But why do you offer sacrifice?
To cleanse yourself.
To cleanse yourself of the sin. So what's being cleansed? The temple or you? You. We're being cleansed. But there was a day once a year where they cleansed the temple. Because what happened? Okay, so right here. So we would bring, let's say we sinned. We would bring this goat or lamb, and then the priest, what would they do? They kill it in front of you, take the blood, and then what do? They go into, okay, so this is the outside where you bring the lamb right here. And then they burn the body of the animals. And then the priest with the blood, what do? They go inside, and we call this place holy place, and there's a veil. There's a veil right here. It's not showing you here, but there's a complete veil. Okay, and then what do they do with the blood? They sprinkle that. So my sin, I am clean of my sin, but where's the sin at? It's on the carpet. Right here. It's on the veil. So once a year, what did they do? They would go and wash that sucker. Alright? And that day was called, anybody know? In the Old Testament, that day was called? That day was called Day of Atonement. Okay? Or in our days, now we call it, or Jewish people still call it this, which is Yom Kippur. Okay? Yom Kippur. All right. So again, right here, so they go, oh, we know this. 2,300 days, sanctuary will be cleansed. So they thought, oh, once it's cleansed, all of sin is gone now. Yeah? Does that make sense? All of sin is gone now. So therefore, that means Jesus is coming. So they thought Jesus is coming 1844. Does that kind of make sense? On why they thought he was coming 1844? Okay. But they made a mistake. What was the mistake? The mistake is after the Day of Atonement, okay, what do? The high priest, what does he do? He goes into the most holy place. And so now SDAs realize, oh, this right here, 2,300 days, it didn't mean that Jesus was coming back. It just meant that Jesus was going into the most holy place. And that's the next part. And now, after that, now literally, Jesus can come anytime now. And that's what SDAs are basically saying. And that's why SDA say, like, it's the end time, it's the end time. Literally, it's the end times. Because now, Jesus is in the most holy place, and he can come out anytime now. Okay. So again, let's look here. So, same exact like pattern, Daniel 7 and 8. Babylon, Middle Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, the political Rome, papal Rome, and then judgment in heaven. Oh, that must mean the sanctuary is cleansed. 1844, right here. Okay, so after that, God's kingdom will be established. So that's why SDAs, okay, say that's when Jesus was coming, 1844. But they realize, oh, we were wrong. It just means that Jesus went into the most holy place. Okay? Any questions about that?
No other prophecy about after that.
There is. There's more like stuff in between right here. In Revelation. Yeah. In Revelation. Like there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen here. So in Revelation, we're gonna go through not all of them because there's a lot, but just the main big things. Like Mark of the Beast. You know, you've heard Mark of the Beast, Sunday Law, this kind of stuff. We're gonna tell you why we think that. Okay, but next week we're gonna go over Daniel chapter 9. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you exactly, because still I still haven't told you about this one. And there's a really cool prophecy. Do you guys know that in Daniel chapter 9, it tells us exactly when Jesus was going to come and how long he was going to live and how long and he was going to die as well. So Daniel tells us, okay, 1,000 years before Jesus came, it tells you exactly what year he was going to come and when he was going to die. All right? So it's really, really cool. All right. And also another really cool thing, if you actually think about it, is... No, actually, I'll tell you next week. Okay, so let's go into review questions and then go over the discussion question and then we'll end. All right, go for it. So this group right here and the partners, go for it.